back. Would it be helpful, or do you want to go on? It would be helpful to review the main points. Always good to review?
From last week.
Yeah.
Especially when people weren't here. Oh, yeah, because Brad wasn't here.
All right. Then let's see if we can review the outstanding points. Our goal, as stated in the title, is to hear the biblical vision of erotic desire. But we began last week not in the Bible, because I was thinking that what I might be trying to do here, we might be able to describe it as the Zen of erotic desire, according to the biblical vision. Because I'm trying what I believe, what I wish to show and give reason for you to believe, and even to understand that the biblical vision is not, it's not an ideology that's imposed upon life, upon erotic desire. When I say, as I understand Zen, which is probably itself a very difficult, you might know better than we do, is a very difficult word itself to describe. I see it as just Zen. The Zen of something is just like, it's the way something is. It's just the isness of something. It's just the way it is. With no tweaking, you're not imposing or projecting onto it anything foreign. You're just letting it be what it is. How does that sound? So, what I believe, honestly, is that the biblical vision is giving us the Zen of erotic desire. It's just it's telling us what it is in its isness. And so I am, towards that end, I'm suggesting some things to think about, that just, to think about erotic desire in itself, just to look at erotic desire as it is, in the hope that we'll come to see that what the biblical vision is showing to us and revealing to us is the depth of erotic desire that is completely natural, even in its glorious presentation or revelation of the, what I'm going to say, the logos, the principle, the substance of erotic desire. So I want to continue that this morning. So after our review, I'd like to just present just a few, very few myths from antiquity that touch upon erotic desire. And then from there, we'll go into the biblical vision and start looking at the biblical vision. But as I'm thinking about erotic desire, just from my own experience and just observation, the points that I made were that erotic desire is consummated. It's pushing. It's this pulsing force in us that is not satisfied until it is consummated in a concrete act of two people coming together. So there's the trajectory, if you will, of erotic desire. So from that, what I see and what I hear is that erotic desire is it's personal. It has a personal quality. I suggested that the stuff of erotic desire, the living waters of man and woman, which are mingled in this consummate act, Where do they come from? They come from within. They come from inside. They're hidden within the body of these people, of these persons. To me that's a datum. You make of that datum whatever you want. This is what I make of the datum. That it's showing us that that erotic desire is a sacred thing. It's a sacred act, and it wants to be hidden. Do you know what you're coming into?
No idea.
Okay, well, you got to stay there. Once you sit, you got to stay. That it's sacred. That the erotic desire is sacred, and it does not want to open itself to desecration, to profane, and by being viewed by profane eyes. And so, what I'm drawing from this is that when we listen to, again, the Zen of erotic desire, what I see, you see what you want, but this is what I see. We see erotic desire not as some impersonal energy force, but rather we see erotic desire as a personal energy. Erotic desire is it's in persons, and it's of persons, so that we see, just by reflecting upon the nature of erotic desire as we can see it, that there's something about it that is personal. It's not impersonal. Now, I was thinking this last week, okay, well, what about the animals? What about the birds? The plants of the field. They also have this drive, this sexual drive to come together. What do we do with that? How do we explain that? How do we account for that? Well, I think I'm going to go to the biblical vision now. What we see in the biblical vision is this gradation, this graduation, this kind of a ladder of being. I'm going to say an ascending ladder of being, where we see the whole sweep of creation coming to its head in man and woman, Adam and Eve. So that in animals, this erotic desire that's pulsing through the creation has the character of being instinctive, just raw instinct. But it has a goal. The biblical vision shows that it has a goal. The summit, like climbing a mountain, the summit of which would be the mystery of Adam and Eve. And so in Adam and Eve, in which all of creation is capitulated, in Adam and Eve, here's where this erotic desire becomes, if you will, humanified. But is that the top? Is that the end? Is that all? Is that as far as it goes? Well, anticipating what we're going to say, of course not. Erotic desire is humanified. It's made human and becomes personal, or carries the quality of the potential of becoming personal in Adam and Eve. And then from there, it's called to become deified, sanctified. It's called to become the expression or the image even of God. And we'll see this more clearly as we go farther. But so, is there anything else that you can think of that we talked about last week that you'd like to bring out? I think, okay, here they are. These are the main points as far as I can remember. My wife has notes. Do you see anything in your notes, dear?
Seems to me like there was a lot more.
Well, there was, but we wouldn't want to give it all over again.
No, I know. Fine.
Okay, so what I said was that I wanted to having reflected upon the mystery of erotic desire, trying to discern, trying to listen to the Zen of erotic desire. Let's look to if we can see anything about the origin of erotic desire. Where does erotic desire come from? What is this ontic source?
Ultimately, it would be God.
Well, hang on. Okay, well, you're taking our thunder away. So let's ride the storm here for a minute. I'm going to go first to something very ancient. Let's see, where is it? Where did I put it? Here it is. Let's first go to. Okay, I'm going to erase this now. Okay. You see here. There we go. I'm going to go first to perhaps the most ancient of all of these of these three sources that I'm going to present to you. Let's go to the Rig Veda, which is from India, ancient India. It is a collection of liturgical texts, ritual texts that are the base of the Upanishads. So we're getting very deep into the history of Indian religion when we go to the Rig Veda. This is from Book 10, Hymn 129, 1-4. And I will test you on that. You have to remember all those numbers. Okay, this is what it says. Then was not non-existent nor existent. Okay, does that make sense? There was nothing. And it's nonsense here. There was nothing, and there was not nothing. Or see, there was nothing. How would you say it, Joe? There was not non-existent. So what does that mean? I hear it saying there was not nothing, and not in the sense that there was something, but that there was nothing. But there wasn't something either. So it's already playing games with your mind. And in so doing, it's kicking you out of your mind so that you're now in a realm that transcends your mind, where you can't think according to your usual way of thinking. Then was not non-existent, non-existent. So we're in a realm where thoughts are transcended completely. There was no realm of air, no sky beyond it. Death was not then, nor was there anything immortal. That one thing, breathless, breathed by its own nature. There's a certain beauty to this. It's actually quite beautiful because it's apophatic. It's not letting your mind rest on any concept. As soon as it gives you this concept, it takes it away. And so it's kicking you out of your mind altogether. And yet you're still having to use your mind as you're contemplating what it's trying to say. Apart from it was nothing whatsoever. Darkness there was. At first concealed in darkness, this all was indiscriminated chaos. All that existed then was void and formless. Does that remind you of Genesis chapter 1? By the great power of warmth was born that unit. Thereafter rose Eros in the beginning. Eros, the primal seed and germ of spirit. Sages who searched with their heart's thought discovered the existence kinship in the non-existent. Here's where it'd be nice to know Sanskrit so that one could check the original text. What is it saying? Discovered the existence kinship. I'm struck by the fact that it does not say discovered the existence kinship with the non-existent, but it discovered the existence kinship in the non-existent. Well, whatever. Let's just kind of blur our eyes, as we heard that, and just look at the major things that stand out when you blur your eyes. What do you hear? We'll focus on erotic desire and eros. What do you hear about eros, erotic desire?
I thought the word warmth was just wonderful.
So, we're trying to trace the origin of erotic desire. So how would you see warmth factoring into that search for erotic desire?
Well, it's less animal.
Okay, so it's a living. What do you mean less animal?
Less animal instinct. Like
Oh,
dogs.
okay. Yeah, well, so it already has, it takes on this kind of a conscious, intentional, or what?
It seems more human.
Okay. So we'll say that has
Less
a,
animal.
okay, so is that what you mean by less animal? Human, more human?
Yeah, we have a wonderful dog, but I wouldn't say he's warm
Okay.
or has warmth.
Okay.
It seems so human to me.
Okay, well that's interesting. I had not thought of that. So this would suggest then that we can see that erotic desire, or eros, has in some way, a human origin, or an origin that's humanistic. Something like that. So that it is not just a cold force. It's not a cold mathematical force, like the image that you get of the energy, right? That the physicists want to say is at the heart of all things. This kind of cold, just impersonal movement of electrons and neutrons and atoms. Okay, so that's interesting. So anything else that strikes you?
Attraction to love and beauty or something? I don't know.
Interesting. Okay, that's implicit there then. So that there is something about eros that conveys to us, as we're thinking about it, a desire for beauty. Is that fair to what you're trying to say?
Beauty? Yeah, or love, I don't know.
Okay, so a desire for beauty, maybe goodness, maybe even justice.
Yeah, I mean,
Because justice in the Greek refers to, I'm thinking Pythagoras right now, it refers to number, but also to harmony. And the source that I was reading was speculating that these two go together because in the Greek, they both start with, they come from a root, a similar root. Harmonia, in the Greek this is armonia, and in the Greek this is what, arithma or something like that, arithmos. So the justice is when everything is in harmony. And that means that everything is in the right proportion. Everything is properly proportioned to the other. So when everything's in harmony, you have beauty, and that's justice. Everything's just. So I don't know. Can we draw from that be careful now. Let's not read too much into it. But maybe this is implicit in it. Eros seems to have this notion of that there's justice, and he talks about all at first concealed in darkness. This all was indiscriminated chaos. All that existed then was void and formless. By the great power of warmth was born that unit. I mean, I'm quite taken by the beauty of the text, because my mind is going back and forth, in and out, and concealed in the darkness. So the darkness is not the origin, because there's something concealed in the darkness, and it's the all that's concealed in the darkness. And in that darkness, it says it was indiscriminated chaos, and yet there was this warm force that was in there, and so it's like a seed within the all that is getting ready to sprout. So you wanted to say something, John?
When you read it, I didn't hear that thing about beauty. I don't know if that was something we deduced from it.
Yeah, we deduced it. It's not explicit in there. So we might be reading into it. So we have to be careful of that. But that's what we're hearing. Tim?
Well, when you read the passage, to me, I could be wrong, but it sounds like it's saying that Eros goes out of itself to come back into itself.
Okay, I think that's similar to beauty. It's like it's implicit there. Because listen, let's read it. Eros, the primal seed and germ of spirit. It doesn't say anything, but what does a seed do? What does a germ do? It germinates, right? It goes out of itself. So but that certainly is consistent with the meaning of eros. Understand, eros is a Greek word, and we're reading from Sanskrit here. So what the Sanskrit word is for eros, I don't know, and does it have the same connotations as the Greek word for eros? But in the Greek, eros is this force. Whatever you want to. Force is not the right word, but it's this impulsion within us. That originates in the heart, as it were, and in the deepest self, and it goes outward. It moves outward, and it's seeking a beloved. Okay.
Because, and again, I just listening to that for the first time. To me, it sounds like there's an implicit suggestion that there's some kind of isolation. I don't want to use the word existential isolation, but there's some isolation that has to be solved, resolved.
Isolation of whom? Who or what is isolated?
The all.
Okay. I'm going to put that down because that's going to become very intriguing when we go to Maximus the Confessor. I'm saying ecstasis. Let's say isolation. Ecstasis is one of my favorite words too. Stasis means to stand or to. It's just resting there. It's immovable. It's a stop. So the iconostas is a stand. It's a wall covered with icons. But ek means away from. So an ecstasis means to stand, as it were, away from yourself. So which implies a movement. It implies a movement even as it conveys the sense of a rest. So it's like an immovable movement, a moving immovable. It's a beautiful word. So it's and it's the word that's used actually for the holy myrrh bearers when they flee the tomb. It says they were in ecstasis. And you search the Holy Scriptures and you find that this word ecstasis occurs in several other significant places. Abraham, when he is doing the sacrifice at night to seal the covenant, says that one of the translations says that he was thrown into a trance. But no, the Greek in the Septuagint is he was in ecstasis. So and there's other passages like that as well, where in a very significant moment, the one who's in the moment is thrown into an ecstasis. He's standing outside of himself. So you put all of these together, leading up to the resurrection and the holy myrrh bearers at the empty tomb, fleeing the tomb in ecstasis. It's highly suggestive to me that there's hiding in the movement of history, this movement towards the empty tomb, which throws us into a completely different realm. I'm fascinated by that. So we got ecstasis and we have isolation, and by the term isolation, you imply kind of an impulsion outward.
Well, that the all can't get a sense of there being anything separate from it. I'm wondering if this is also just a really complex metaphor for the self. We're the void in the all.
Yeah, I would say so.
So if you think about the person,
yes,
the ego is isolated.
Okay.
And cannot go beyond its conscious self.
But it seeks to.
It seeks to, like I can't get inside your head, you can't get inside mine.
Okay.
All I know is the world as it
Well,
presents
okay.
itself to me.
Okay, we're bringing out a lot of the things. Can I say an impulsion outward, or even an ecstatic impulsion? And what you said was what you implied and what you said, what I heard, is that this outward, this impulsion, or this ecstatic impulsion, is driven by a thirst to know you. But to know is also to love.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, what's buried in what you said, is a thirst for unity, a thirst for union. So I'm going to put all that down. All right. Now the only other thing that I wanted to point out, I mean, this is wonderful. I had not thought of any of this. So that's why it's good to open it up to you. What I wanted to show, beyond anything else that we come up with, was that here we see that erotic desire is, if you will, it's in the beginning. It's of origin. I mean, so that somehow everything, as it comes into being, is coming into being from some associated, related somehow to this erotic force. So that eros is showing, Rig Veda, this text is showing that eros is of the beginning, and even in the beginning, but it's not the beginning, because it was in the all, right? It was in the all concealed by the darkness. It's in this formless form, this empty fullness. It's inside of that, so that it comes from within something. And that's what I'm trying to say. So it's in the beginning, but it's not the absolute beginning. It's not the source, it's not the cause, but it comes from within the cause. Okay? All right, that's enough. We could spend an entire semester, obviously, on the myths, but now let's go to the next, which is probably maybe almost as, but I don't think it's as ancient as the Rig Veda. This comes from Babylon, ancient Babylon, the epic myth known as the Enuma Elish. This is a myth, a long myth, another beautiful myth. I love this myth. Seven chapters, and it here, it's longer than many of the myths that we're reading about from antiquity. So anyhow, we'll start at the very beginning. It says, "When there was no heaven, no earth, no height, no depth, no name." You see how it's doing the same thing that the Rig Veda is doing? It's playing games with your mind. It's not letting your mind focus or settle on any one concept. "When Apsu was alone," okay, here's the God. The sweet water. Okay, he's the sweet water. The first begetter. He's called the first begetter. And Tiamat, the bitter water. And that return to the womb, I don't know, her mumu, when there were no gods. Well, Apsu and Tiamat obviously are the gods. That's all I wanted to read. What do you see? Okay. Apsu and Tiamat. This is the masculine. This is the feminine. Apsu is the sweet water, Tiamat is the bitter water. I guess I should keep going, I'm sorry. When sweet and bitter, when Apsu and Tiamat mingled together, again, one would love to know what the original word is. What word are they translating? And I don't know. What would this be? Akkadian. No reed was plaited, no rushes muddied the water. The gods were nameless, natureless, futureless. Then, from Apsu and Tiamat, from their mingling in the waters, gods were created. And then it goes on to delineate the genealogies of the gods. So that's what I wanted to read. So what do you see? Eros is not mentioned here anywhere, but I think Eros is here. See if,
I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but
we're trying to trace the origins of Eros. So when I ask, what do you see, what do you hear, what do you hear in those terms?
well, opposites, the idea that opposites attract, but also when opposites, there's a boundary to sweet, there's a boundary to bitter, but when they touch, there's that third boundary.
Okay.
Not one, then not either. That's your third.
Interesting. Interesting. You must be a philosopher. Opposites. Okay. Opposites coming together in union. And what happens?
A third.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm not sure what to make of her mumu. But what I would point out, what I would bring to your attention is how all the gods proceed from their union. So, how would you see their union? I mean, what is their union a picture of? Apsu and Tiamat. Yeah, marriage, sexual union, sexual intercourse. Apsu, the sweet water. There's the waters of the male. Tiamat, the bitter waters, the waters of the female. Their waters come together. We're talking about a nuptial union. This is a term that was coined later by scholars. I don't know that the ancients use it so much, but this is an image of the hieros, or the sacred gamos, marriage. The hieros gamos. And from the hieros gamos, everything comes into being. So now, where would you play? Where's Eros here? It's not mentioned at all, but where's erotic desire?
In their union.
Yeah, this is the picture of erotic desire. And from that erotic desire, from the consummation of that erotic desire, what happens? Creation. The gods come into being. And then the plants, what does it say? The plants and the fields, the rushes, so forth and so on. And from there, the Enumena Elish proceeds into a very beautiful drama that is rich in symbolism. So we have two ancient mythological texts which are showing, giving us reason, or they're drawing in our mind the picture of the beginning of creation as a mystery of Eros. Now there's no other here. Erotic, the germ of Eros is just coming forth from the all, but the all is itself a kind of a jumble of all kinds of things. So this is more monistic, I suppose. But here we see the same thing, in a different structure. We see the same principle, that everything is coming forth from the consummation of erotic desire. So what we're seeing that is that erotic desire. What I'm suggesting that we see is that erotic desire. We're trying to trace its logos and its ontic origins. We're trying to find the zen of erotic desire. That what this is telling us is that it is of the beginning. It's in the beginning. Erotic desire is primordial, let's say. It's primordial. It's primordial. Now go to Joanne's point. She saw a humanness or something that was less. She didn't say human, she said less animal. And I think you're trying to say that we're in a time when the humans are not yet. But it's not animal either. It's like the seed of human. So if Eros is of the beginning and in the beginning, he put that together with Joanne's point. Can you see that what we're seeing here is that the mystery of humanity, the warmth of humanity, is somehow primordial. It's primal. Which flies in the face, I would suggest, of the myth of modern science. I have no objection. I love science when it stays within its boundaries. When it starts trying to do theology, then I'm off the boat. So, okay, enough of that. You get the idea. Let's go to a third text. This is not so ancient. I mean, in terms relative to what we have here. This is from Pherecydes of Saros. We're running out of room here. Pherecydes of Saros was one of the 7 pre-Socratic sages. Pherecydes of Saros. Is that right? Saros? Well, I have Syros. Okay. That changes everything. So he was about 700s or so, 600s, I think, BC. To the 7, he was one of the 7 pre-Socratics, as I said. They are credited with having come together and distilled the essence of their wisdom and inscribed it on an oracle in the temple of Apollo at Delphi. And it consisted of these 2 famous aphorisms. 1, know thyself, and 2, nothing too much. There's a lot contained in those. You think about them. So anyway, this is what he had to say, among many other things. This is one of the fragments that we have from him. Zeus, when he was about to create, transformed himself into Eros, because constituting the cosmos from the opposites, he led the cosmos into harmony, justice, and love. And again, I don't have the original. I don't know what the word for love here is. It could be one of 4 different words. Could it be erota, which is connected to eros, or is it agape? I think those are the 2 most likely candidates. I don't know though. But he led it into harmony and love, and sowed, listen to this, sowed identity or sameness in all, and extended unity throughout the whole. What do you hear there? Zeus, when he was about to create, transformed himself into Eros, because constituting the cosmos from the opposites, he led it into harmony and love, and sowed identity or sameness in all, and extended unity throughout the whole. Just general principles. What do you hear in terms of our search for the origin of Eros? A departure from chaos. So we're going back, so we're coming into harmonia, into justice. Now, I'm just aside here. This discovery of ours this morning that Eros can be connected to justice or harmonia and to harmony is very intriguing to me in light of what Tim was sharing with us last week, alluding to the Dionysian myth, where Eros, erotic desire, seems to be this wild, untamable force that will destroy you if you don't keep it at bay, which is exactly the opposite of harmonia or harmony. Something to think about. I don't know what to make of that. Well, I won't say I don't know what to make of it, but I think any of us can make something of it, whether it's the right thing, I don't know. But anyway, so we hear that that harmony, because he says harmony and love, or which is the opposite of chaos. But let me ask you just kind of a very a question. Is, according to this, would eros be of matter, material, of the world, of the earth, or is it of the gods? Is it divine, or is it matter, of the just atoms, neutrons, electrons flying together? Which is it? You want me to read it again? It's divine, yes. Because what is eros in its essence, in its logos? What is it? Zeus, when he was about to create, transformed himself into Eros. Eros is Zeus. It's the god. And it's the god who, through Eros, is entering into matter and bringing everything together into harmony. And through that harmony, bringing everything together in this unity, this union. So that in this, what we hear is that Eros is a unifying force. And that's consistent with the name of it. And I would say that if we look deep into ourselves, we would say that it's consistent with what in fact is what our erotic desire is all about. Why am I going out on myself and doing all of those things that I do? What am I looking for? I'm looking for unity. I'm looking for union with someone. I'm looking for a beloved. That's what the driving force is. I think that's good enough, because I want to at least get into the Bible this morning. Anything else that you see that you'd like to add to what you're? Yes, Joanne.
Last reading reminded me so much of that short line in the wedding service about God who unites. What was it, thunder? I don't want to say it right, but
no, you're right. Yes. Father Jonathan gave a beautiful sermon on that at the 5th Sunday of Lent, showing how that is that the OCA text is a woeful mistranslation of the Greek. That he brings together what was sundered, and the force of the text is showing that here is the body of Christ that has subdued and conquered all of these wild forces that are wanting to tear us apart. So that's the beauty of marriage. It's bringing together the male and the female who, through sin, were torn apart from each other when they were created in unity and became enemies. Through Christ, they're joined together and the original unity is restored. So, what the myths suggest to me, and also from Pherekitos of Sardis, these men are, they're not silly, frivolous men. They're deep thinkers. They're pondering, they're contemplating, their own experience. They're trying to understand reality in a very serious, reverent way. And so I take seriously what I read in them. I don't just dismiss it. I take it very seriously. And what I see is that they are discovering, if you will, the Zen of erotic desire, and they're presenting to us the bare bones, the skeletal structure, if you will, of erotic desire. So that now, and what we're hearing is that there is this intuitive knowledge of the soul that knows that what this erotic force in me is all about. When I take the trouble to still myself and to listen to it and not let it take me away in this Dionysian frenzy, when I get myself still and listen to it, I can see that what it's all about is this driving force seeking to become one with a beloved. And that this force is divine. It's of the gods. I think that's did somebody record that? I think that was a fair description, a fair distillation of what the philosophers and the myths are saying as they describe our own experience. So now, let's go to the scriptures real quickly. We'll just look real quickly at the opening of Genesis chapter 1. Can I erase this?
Yeah.
You have this down, dear?
But I do want to say this. I do think animals, by animals I mean the lower animals, other than us,
Okay.
are capable of love, but what they're not capable of is these higher concepts.
They're capable of.
Love. I think dogs do have love for each other,
Okay.
for us, but I think they don't have this concept of beauty. They're not aware of their mortality. They're not consciously aware of God.
Well, I guess to Joanna's point that there's a human element that erotic desire is striving for
Yeah.
in creation.
I think it is possible for a dog or for other animals to have a degree of love and warmth. They just don't have that higher.
It becomes humanified. It becomes humanified in man, but what I'm suggesting is that even in man it has not yet reached its goal.
Yeah.
Its full ultimate goal is deification. And you're the one who took the thunder away at the very beginning. Comes from God, is going back to God. Okay, let's go to Genesis chapter 1. With this first I can't remember what passage is, what the exact scripture is, but it's 1 John something. I think it's in chapter 4. Does anybody remember where it is? Would you like to know what I'm talking about? God is love. And I think the word is agape, which means it's kind of a dispassionate love. It loves all things indiscriminately, unconditionally, just love. God is love. So with that in mind, we go to Genesis chapter 1. And it says, in the beginning, God made the heaven and the earth. And that word "may" is from the Greek poieo, and so that's the verb poieo, and the noun is poema. Do you hear poem? That's the word. That's what poieo means. It means to write a poem. So it's saying when God created the world, He didn't just make it. He wrote a poem, or He created a work of art, a work of harmony, justice. The earth was without form, and it was unfurnished. You could translate it. And darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was moving above the water, or over the water. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided, so forth and so on. Okay, let's just pause real quickly and let's see what we can draw from this in the next 3 minutes. If God is love, first of all, let's back up. Okay. In this act of creating, I don't know how to. Can you see that God? I'll ask another question. Is God remaining within Himself, or is He coming outside of Himself? Yes, He's moving outside of Himself. So this movement of creation is a movement of God. It's a movement of, what do we call it? Ecstatic impulsion? We shouldn't have erased that. What did I call it? An impulsion towards ecstasis, an ecstatic movement. And so with that, let me pause real quickly. Then we'll have to end with this. This is a good place to end. Theologians. This is from St. Maximus the Confessor, 5th century, various texts. St. Maximus he died in 662. Theologians call the divine sometimes an erotic force, sometimes love, and I think the word here is erota, which is derived from, it might not be, I have the Greek, it might be a copy. Sometimes that which is intensely longed for and loved, consequently as an erotic force and as love. The divine itself, listen to this, the divine itself is subject to movement. And as that which is intensely longed for and loved, it moves itself towards everything that is receptive of this force and love. To express this more clearly, the divine itself is subject to movement, since it produces an inward state of intense longing and love in those receptive to them. And it moves others, since by nature it attracts the desire of those who are drawn towards it. In other words, it moves others and itself moves. Listen to this. Since it thirsts to be thirsted for, longs to be longed for, and loves to be loved. Therefore, the divine erotic force produces ecstasy, compelling those who love to belong not to themselves, but to those whom they love. Do you see in the creation God coming out of himself? Now, how would you describe, how would you see this movement of God outside of himself? Is it not the manifestation of God as this erotic force? Coming out of himself, seeking a beloved. And who's his beloved? Well, he's going to create someone he can love, someone who's other than him, completely other than him, so that he can love her without her being swallowed up into himself. She remains who she is and what she is, so that in the union, the both of them remain forever. They remain who and what they are forever. So in that sense, they remain different from one another forever. But precisely in that difference, they become one. And that is the mystery of love, and that's why love abides forever. Yeah. Because the lovers and the beloved never dissolve into one another. So what I asked you to see then, you can see that the mystery of creation, just from this very short demonstration, and how it's consistent in many, many ways with the ancient texts that we've read from extra-biblical sources, how the mystery of creation is itself the embodiment of erotic love. Okay, can we go with that?
I know we have to go, but I just want to make a comment. I like what you said, that they become one, but yet they don't lose who they are. Because I know up until, I don't know, maybe a generation or two ago, it used to be very common to refer to a married woman, not just by her husband's last name, but by her husband's whole would say, this is John Smith. You know what? I always hated that they basically obliterated her first name. I mean, she still retains who she is, Mrs. Mary Smith, not Mrs. John Smith. I hated that. I'm not saying even as a teenager, I hated that. Instinctively, I thought that was wrong.
Well, it sounds like the reasons you hated it were justified. Okay, listen, we got to get upstairs.